welcome to my channel and to this week's Ask Charlie. Now, I had somebody, Laura, who got in touch with me saying, could I talk to her a little bit more about the condition that I have? And she is suffering with various things, and she hopes that me sharing what I've been through and what I do, how I manage it, will help. So that's what I'm going to do this week. So I was diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome in my early 20s, and I'll leave the name of it linked here on the screen and down in the description box below. Now, this is my story. This is my journey. I am not an expert at all. I'm just sharing what I have been through and what I have found helps me. So please, this is my story. It might not help you if you're suffering. So do your own research. I just want to say that at the beginning because I think it's really important, because it's a condition that affects quite a few people, but quite a few people in very, very different ways. And so what works for me might not necessarily work for other people. And it is, I've found over the years, trial and error. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is something that affects people in lots of different ways, but the way it affects me is my joints. So they're very, very hypermobile, they're overly flexible. The connective tissue is a lot looser than other people's, and the collagen makeup is slightly different as well. So for example, I don't know, I'm not sure I can find a good example, but my skin is quite elastic, and it does take quite a long time to heal. I scar quite badly. I've got lots of scars over my body, and my joints, a lot of them are very, very flexible. Fingers, elbows, shoulders, my back. My party trick is lying on my stomach and being able to put my head back and my legs back and put my heels on my chin, literally completely doing a back bend, which is not a great idea to do that very often at all. I can also literally like hold a bar and pop my arms behind my head, and my shoulders will just sort of pop round. I can pop my hips out. I can do all sorts of things. Not ideal at all. And I have been affected by it my entire life. Girls, shush. I inherited it from my grandmother. Penny, shush. No, don't grumble at me. I inherited it from my grandmother, but it skipped a generation. None of her children had it. 50% of children are likely to get it. All 3 of my children have got it, bless them. But at least I know, and I knew early, I knew when they were toddlers that they had it. And so it's something that we're aware of. I, as I mentioned, wasn't diagnosed until my early 20s, but I went to see all sorts of specialists. From about the age of 7 or 8, I was having ankle problems. That's how it started. And I would be running and suddenly my ankle would just give way and I would collapse. And I was a really kind of sporty, active child. I did gymnastics, I did ballet. I loved, running and riding and all of those things. But I did really struggle with my ankles giving way a lot. So I went to see various people, various physios, and in the end I was put in plaster. They decided that the best thing to do was to rest it because they didn't know what was wrong. And we're talking about the mid-80s. And anyway, putting it in plaster was the worst possible thing, because actually when you have a condition like this, rest is not the answer. You need to be strengthening the whole time. And that is what I discovered, but years later. So I was then told, I had all sorts of problems, but then I think the next big problem for me was puberty. And at the age of 14, I was told I had to stop riding. I was passionate about riding. I wanted to be on the British pony event team. That was my dream. And I was told I had to stop riding. I rode with a back brace to hold I velcroed myself into this thing around my hips. But when you ride, let's move the chair out of the way. When you ride astride, normally your hips are open and you're your lower back and your hips are quite vulnerable in that position. So I ended up riding side saddle. It was a friend of my mother's. When you ride side saddle, your pelvis is closed. And when your pelvis is closed, you have a lot more strength through your back and through your stomach. Just try it now and you'll see. When you're like that, your pelvis is open and you don't have any strength. And I just couldn't cope with riding in that way. But I was told to stop riding, but I was also put on bed rest, which was the worst thing to do. And I developed osteoporosis. When I was 20, I had a chest infection and I broke some ribs coughing. And my doctor referred me to a dietitian. She referred me to have a Dexter bone density scan after, various conversations. And from that, I was then referred to see a rheumatologist. I was age 20 with borderline osteopenia, osteoporosis, which is terrifying. And when I saw the rheumatologist, I said to him, is it normal that I can do these things? And he said, what? Show me. And he was like, no, they're not normal at all. And he referred me to somebody called Professor Rodney Graham. And Professor Graham's now retired. And I can't recommend anybody good because I haven't personally seen them since I saw him and he diagnosed me. And I believe he wrote a paper on me as well. He didn't really go into specifics of what I should do to make things better. It was just like, this is what you've got. It answered a whole load of stuff, but then I was kind of left to it. And, in my early 20s, I was living in London. I was partying and having fun and not really taking care of myself. And it wasn't until much further down the line where I had a few broken bones, because of course my bones were a lot weaker. I knew that he did tell me that pregnancy was going to be challenging, but childbirth would be easy. That was pretty much all I was told. Oh, Tess is running in the garden behind. She was walking around in circles so much, I put her outside. So I knew that, pregnancy was going to be challenging, but birth would be quick and rapid. And that was pretty much all I knew. But for various reasons, I have a low estrogen level. Whether it's to do with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or not, I don't know, but I do. And it meant we had problems conceiving because of my low estrogen level. And I was on a fertility treatment and that didn't work. I ended up actually having acupuncture and that did work for me, which is amazing. So we have three wonderful children, but pregnancy was challenging because your body releases hormones to make you more flexible, which I certainly did not need those. So I was dislocating things, all sorts of things happened. Archie's foot got caught in my ribs. Somehow or other, I put my coccyx out. I dislocated my ankle. It was a challenging time, but birth was actually pretty easy in comparison. So that was lucky and a relief. But again, I know from past experience, anaesthetic doesn't work in a normal way to me. So whenever I have an anaesthetic, I have to tell the doctor, the anaesthetist, that they might need to tweak it. Certainly when I've had local anaesthetic, it hasn't necessarily worked in the right way. I've had various moles removed and things like that, and I've been able to feel the whole thing. And when I had an epidural with our daughter, it didn't work in the right place. It just went down one leg and the anaesthetist just kept topping it up rather than reciting it. She wasn't in the right spot for me. But I'm not normal, and sort of discovered that as the years went on. And I had a lot of back problems, which started from the riding. It started with my lower back, and I had so many scans. I saw so many specialists, and they didn't know what was going on. I never thought of telling them how flexible I was, but nobody ever asked. So why would you say, oh yes, this is my party trick? It just didn't seem relevant, and nobody ever said, can you do this? And things like that, and everything it's double jointed, my jaw clicks, all sorts of things. So it wasn't until years later, actually 9 years ago, I broke my leg very badly. I broke my tibial plateau, so the bottom part of my knee, and my ankle. And it was actually, it wasn't even a fall. I jumped off a horse that was bucking, and I didn't want to be bucked off, so I decided to jump off. The ground was uneven, my ankle turned, and the shock went up my leg and shattered the tibial plateau, which was terrible. And I'd had a series of disastrous things happening. So the year before I broke my leg, I shattered my scapula, and only 1% of people managed to do that. But of course, I was that 1%. And that was from a fall from a horse. 6 months after my shoulder, I had 2 disc bulges in my lower back, and I was actually speaking to a back surgeon about having an operation. That's how bad it had got, but I was managing it through Pilates and pain relief, but I wasn't in great shape, still determined. And I think Ehlers-Danlos syndrome has certainly made me incredibly determined, maybe stupidly so at times, but I want to be able to enjoy and live an active and full life as I can. So I do have this dogged, determined side to me, which is why I wasn't prepared to ever stop riding. It just wasn't an option for me. So anyway, trying another horse was when I broke my leg, and that accident was life-changing in so many ways. I had to have my leg above my heart for 4 months after the surgery. Now, they hadn't realised I had damaged my ankle significantly at the time of the accident. The knee was obvious, but the ankle wasn't so obvious until I started weight bearing. And the bruising on my ankle and the swelling on it would indicate that I had done something significant, but nobody picked up on it. But because I couldn't weight bear, I didn't make too much of a fuss. I did mention it to the consultant a couple of times, but nobody really said anything. But it wasn't until I was asked to start weight bearing 4 months later that I just kept saying, I can't. It really, really is hurting. So it was x-rayed and scanned, and I was told I needed to have surgery on that. So yes, it was a really difficult time. And actually, when I was in hospital, I'm just trying to remember, this is all sort of, a bit jumped because I'm trying to remember the timeline. When I was in hospital having broken my leg, I was in serious pain after I had the knee surgery. They put in a plate and various screws into my knee, and my back had been affected, those disc bulges, significantly during surgery. And so I had to have a spinal block to get the pain under control, but that wasn't until 10 days after my operation that anyone finally listened to me. It took me emailing the guy. So I had actually 4 steroid injections in my lower back for those disc bulges, which did help enormously. And it was me emailing that back specialist to say, this is what's happened, and I think the pain has been triggered. I think the pain is coming from here. And I think when you're in huge pain, when you've had a really bad accident, it's quite difficult in those early days to pinpoint the exact pain. But I knew that it was coming from my lower back and from my sort of glutes, sciatica, as well as the knee, as well as the ankle. So it was a very, very difficult time, and actually one of the darkest times in my life. Actually, I've had a few. That was one of them. And I had my surgeon, my knee surgeon, recommended that I had some therapy because he could tell I was really, really struggling. But anyway, fast forward a year after the broken knee, and I was told that I needed to have more surgery on my knee because my knee was rolling in. And actually, I decided to find the best knee specialist I could possibly find and get a second opinion because I really didn't want to have another operation. I had to have 2 operations on my knee, keyhole on my knee, and then an ankle operation. And I just did not want more knee surgery a year later. So I found a specialist, and he was amazing. He said, actually, the surgeon's done a great job, but you need really, really intense physio, because the reason why they think your knee's rotating in is it's actually coming from your hip and from your lower back, because that area is so weak that your whole leg is rotating in. So I found, from him, he recommended his physio, and she was one of the physios for the British ice skating team, and she was phenomenal. And honestly, Teresa changed my life. And she told me I needed to exercise regularly. And she said, well, what, and I said, well, I do. I'm active. I walk the dogs, and I do the horses, and I do Pilates once a week. She was like, Charlie, that isn't exercise. We're talking proper exercise. We're talking you joining a gym and you're going at least 5 times a week. Well, that wasn't an option for me. We live in the middle of nowhere, and the nearest gym was like 30 minutes in the wrong direction. So that is when I discovered Leigh Linton online, and Leigh has completely changed my life through workouts. And Teresa, the physio, couldn't believe the transformation in me, and I couldn't believe the transformation in me. The power of exercise and strength training and doing the right exercise is so crucial. And Leigh breaks down every exercise, and she's now got a new platform which is unbelievably incredible. There's so much information on there. She's so specific about how you perform each exercise that you are not doing it incorrectly. So your body's in the correct position for each exercise. So she really breaks down the technique of doing a sit-up. When I started, I could do 2 mountain climbers. That was it. 2, because I had absolutely zero strength. Now I can do whatever I want. And I try, and I find it really hard in the winter because of the horses and because of daylight and because of time. But I do try. The horses take me 2 hours in the winter a day. So then to do a workout as well, that's 3 hours gone out of my day before I can even start working. So I am not as regular during the winter as I should be, and I do suffer and pay the price. I definitely feel more aches and pains, but I do try to work out now 3 to 5 times a week, and it has just made such a difference. I don't have the aches and pains. I used to live on sleeping pills, muscle relaxants, and painkillers. And sometimes I felt like I had knives in my back and shooting pains down my leg, and just felt absolutely broken. And I felt like that a lot of my life. And it's not a fun place to be. And now I don't have any of that. And it's literally by holding in your core when you're performing exercises. It's making sure that your knees don't overshoot your toes when you're doing a squat. It's all these little techniques that got me slowly fitter and stronger. It's about holding a plank in the right position, making sure that you are pulling your belly button back towards your spine and holding yourself and lifting up out of your elbows. It makes such a difference if you perform these things correctly. Because I hyperextend, I can very easily do things incorrectly and do a lot of damage. And that was my problem for years. I would go to yoga and end up with a trapped nerve and not be able to feel my foot for weeks, because I'm so flexible. My body doesn't say, ow, that hurts, stop. I would just bend and then do damage to myself. So you have to find what works for you. And I found Pilates really, really good, but then the strength. And, it has really changed my life. I do have, in that knee that I broke, the cartilage is badly damaged. My meniscus is raggedy, and I will need a knee replacement at some point. So I have taken out high impact stuff and running from my routine, which I am very sad about. However, I want to try and get this knee through until at least my early to mid 50s if possible, so I need to look after it. So I cycle, I walk, I ride, I ski, but I ski with a neoprene brace on my knee. And I make sure that I do the right strength exercises. I make sure that I do a lot, you can't really see my knees, but I do a lot of squats. I put a Pilates ball in between my knees and I squeeze them together. I do a lot of really specific exercises that I have done, through working with a physio, Teresa. I haven't needed to see her for years, but I've remembered the exercises that we did. And then through my workouts with Leigh, totally life-changing. And I find when you're doing workouts, you then want to fuel your body in the right way so you feel well. So I know that, if I eat well, I feel so much better. So I do try to eat seasonal food. I try to cook from scratch where possible. I try to, be healthy. I don't drink very much. I don't have fizzy drinks very often. I did get into a little bit of a bad habit over sort of Christmas and January with Coke, and it's amazing how like one can of Coke a month can then become one a week. Then it can just creep up. So I stopped that because fizzy drinks are really bad for bone health, including fizzy water, which not many people know about. And it's about having a really good, balanced, varied diet. I found seriously important, and exercise. Our bodies are designed to be moving. They're designed to be active. We're not designed to be sitting at a desk, sitting on our backside all day long, not really moving around. We're designed to be out there hunting for our food, keeping warm, building shelters, being physical and active, and we need to use our bodies. And if we don't have a physical job and we're not using all of our muscles and our whole body the whole time, then we need to do those workouts to keep ourselves strong. Sorry, the children are in the house. We need to be doing these things to keep ourselves strong, particularly us women, perimenopause, menopause age. It's crucial for our bone health. But actually, I was listening to something the other day. It's crucial to start looking after your bones and your body in your early 30s. There's no point leaving it until it's too late. You need to look after it, from as early as possible. And we can make huge changes. Sorry. It's a bit of a madhouse here. I've done quite well chatting to you for this long without everyone going nuts. Hang on a minute. I'm hoping everyone's going to be quiet for a moment. But yes, bone health, not too much alcohol. Keep it to an absolute minimum. Sparkling fizzy drinks are really, like, I have sparkling water once in a blue moon. A varied diet, is really important. Exercise is absolutely crucial, and finding the exercise that works for you, but really some strength in there is so important. For bone mass, you need a high impact. So swimming isn't going to do your bones any good. It's walking, running, weights, those sorts of exercises that have a really positive effect. So that is something for you, to look into and to do your research. But trust me, I have been at rock bottom physically, where, I could not even do a press up. I could literally be in a box on my hands and knees, in a box, not even at an angle. And now I can do press ups, full on proper press ups. And it's phenomenal what you can do by being consistent. Consistency is absolute key. You can make such a huge difference. Starting a plank on your knees for 10 seconds, then building it up a couple of days later to 20 seconds, then to 30 seconds, and then going up onto your feet and doing it that way. And now I'll do planks where I'm one-footed, I'm rocking, I'm dipping my hips from side to side, I'm lifting an arm and a leg, I'm doing all those sorts of things. but it's really, really important to build it up slowly. Don't overface yourself, and to work with a physio if you're unsure. I know I've mentioned Leigh Linton. She has such a variety of workouts that she shares every week. I know that Jen, Meet Me at the Bar, people talk very highly of her. I've done a couple of her classes, but I stick with Leigh because I know it works for me. I know what suits me, and I know that she always is offering modifications for every exercise. So she might be, she'll be doing, like, she's got to be, the fittest. So she's jumping, she's doing tuck jumps, she's doing all that jazz, and that's fine. She can do her and you can do you, if that makes sense. So if you've got to do the modifications, don't feel that you aren't, that you're not succeeding because you're having to do the modifications. I really struggled when I had to stop the jumping, that I wasn't pushing myself enough. But you absolutely do. It's about just staying in your lane and doing your thing and not worrying about other people. I think that is my best advice, because it's really important. All of our bodies are different. We are all totally unique, and we all have, different things that we have to contend with and manage. But I know through doing exercise consistently that you can totally change your life, because I've done it a number of times, and it really does make a world of difference when you feel better and you're living a pain-free life. I was there talking to back surgeons about operating. That is how bad I had got with my lower back. No operation, and now my back is amazing. I can lift all sorts of things. Somebody looked at me last week and they were like, no, don't lift that. And I was like, no, I can lift that. It's not a problem, as long as I know how to lift and I'm doing it properly. So I just suck in my core, and I do that every time I'm shoveling muck from the ground up to the top of the muck heap. I say to myself, every shovel, core, because the moment I'm not tensing my core and sucking it in, my lower back is vulnerable, and that is when I'm going to hyperextend shoveling, and that's when I'm going to do myself an injury. So I have to remember, because I suffered at the beginning of the winter last autumn, my lower back, I strained it from shoveling because I was out of practice and I didn't keep reminding myself. And so I did have to go and see the osteopath a couple of times and just get myself back on track. So I know that you can make huge differences because I've done it for myself. But anyway, I really hope that me sharing this is helpful, that it gives you some encouragement, because we all can make positive changes in any aspect of our life. And this is one thing that I have to contend with, but it's all I've ever known. So you just have to get on with it. And because I know about it, I can help my children. So I make sure that they are fit, that they are active, and I'm very sympathetic when they do have aches and pains, and we manage that, and it helps. Anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you on Friday with a vlog. And if there are things that you would like me to talk about, do get in touch and ask, because it was lovely that Laura got in touch and asked me if I would talk more about my story, and I hope that it helps me sharing. Anyway, lots of love, and see you soon.